Kevin's Card Corner, it's Kevin's Card Corner, it's Kevin's Card Corner. Hey, welcome to the first ever episode of Kevin's Card Corner. I don't know, maybe it'll be a weekly podcast, we'll see. Depends on how much stuff is happening in the world of a children's card game known as Yugioh. But thank you for clicking on this, thank you for listening. Please leave a like, comment, sub, all that fun stuff. We're doing this on a lovely day. If you can hear in the background noise, my Mexican neighbors going crazy, having a great time with their Hispanic music. It's lovely. You know, I love the accordion so much. But anyways, we're here. We're gonna talk about children's card games, why Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel sucks, right? And all that stuff. So leave it in the background. Act as white noise. Maybe you're listening to this when you're falling asleep. Who knows? I don't really care, so long as you're listening to my lovely voice. We'll see. Obviously things will change here and there, but let's start off with this, huh? Tournaments. Whoa, tournaments. Honestly, it's not really the problem, right? I think everyone is in agreement that the real problem are the Shizu cards. If they hit all those to 1 or even ban them straight up, I think tournaments will probably be not as oppressive, right? Because they can just play through so much depending on what they mill. And if you're playing the mirror match, it kind of boils down to whoever makes, Duel first and all that stuff. Because in real life, obviously it's a best of 3. You can side in certain cards, etc. And shuffling. But hey, I think you've all heard this, right? I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, the RNG algorithm for shuffling the cards or something, it has to be rigged. Like, I legitimately think it is rigged. If you've seen my streams, you know that I put in D-Fissure against, tournaments. I put in 3 of them. Guess how many tournaments I play? 0. Well, no, all of a sudden I take them out. Guess what happens? It's Tier City over and over. And obviously, playing Sky Tracker is really hard unless you open, the bee's knees. And somehow they don't open Ishizu shufflers because they can just shuffle back your engages and all that stuff. So it's just so difficult. Now, is it a good thing that Master Duel is in a tier 0 format? Because we are in a tier 0 format, right? There's no point in denying it. Tier is the best deck, and the only way to stop tier is to play non-tier anti-meta stuff. Like what? I don't know. I mean, I guess Exorcister, they made deck D-Shifter, Floanderies, which in my opinion is one of the worst decks ever created, because it says no to Maxi, and I'm gonna say it, right? I feel like there's no skill involved. You brick, or you just combo, or not really combo, but you just keep normal summoning, hint, right? Normal summon, which is basically, it says no to Maxi, and then you end on Big Penguin, set trap, and then play on your opponent's turn and all that stuff. You know how incredibly annoying that is? You play on your opponent's turn. At least with Terror Limit, like, you can kind of maybe play around it, right? But Floanderies, you normal summon, or literally anything, it's like they can just pop off. Because Floanderies, sure, it dies to like an Imperum, dies to all that stuff, but you have to open it, and they go first with Macrocosmos and D-Shifter. Well, guess what? You are screwed. Absolutely screwed. So that's the meta right now. It's not very fun, obviously. Like, you can hit D1, of course, with almost anything, which is something I believe. You could directly hit D1 with, say, I don't know, Dark Magician, right? Dark Magician is possible if you get lucky and you main, I don't know, these shifters and all the board breaker stuff, and then hope you go first every single time, right? It just takes time and effort, and at the moment, playing Sky Striker and even Tier Limits, it gets real boring real quick when you're playing the mirror constantly. These are other decks before. Remember before how simple it was with Sprite? Remember when that deck would basically die to a single Dank Ruler no more? Haha, Tier Limits, you gotta have everything. The way I like to think of it is, imagine Tier Limits as like a Ferrari, vroom vroom, gotta go fast. Shout out Sonic the Hedgehog. But instead of running out of gas, it just runs out of water. You just add some water. Every other deck, like Sky Striker, if I had to compare Sky Striker to some kind of vehicle, I'd probably think of it as like a minivan. Very not flashy. I mean, all reliable. You can take the whole fam to like a trip. I don't know. You can go to Disneyland or something. It goes everywhere. You gotta go to daycare, drop off the kids, you can go shopping, go on a family trip, slow and steady, always reliable. Got a lot of people in there, but not obviously flashy, like a Ferrari, like tournaments, or I guess I don't know, what would be a Prius. Prius is like, I guess, stun decks. Some people don't really like it. That's right, I said it. No, I'm just kidding. If you drive a Prius, it's all right. What do you do to hit tournaments? I think the obvious solution is to just hit the Shizu cards, to be honest. Like, good old Kit Kat. She probably will get banned because she's super rare, so that kind of gives it away, right? She doesn't even have animation, even though it's probably the most important card in tournaments overall. But, I mean, just hit these Shizus, really. The new ban list, it's good and bad. Obviously, it's a 10 out of 10 because Sky Striker gets red right back to 3. But it's horrible because now bad tournament players won't play the bad cards anymore. Like, King of the Swamp and I guess Instant Fusion, which is a one-off for people who choose to play that, which I believe is everybody. But it hurts more of the rogue decks, So it feels bad for you Predaplant players. You invested in the wrong card. At least you'll get an Ultra Road back, right? So there's that. I mean, it's just hard. Now, it's going to be like tournaments going to play the same, basically cookie cutter deck. Yeah, you'll have to deal with maybe Gravekeeper's Trap, which in real life, nobody played at all. But in Master Duel, it's best of one. You got to play like Saki 1-ups when you play against people, right? So, it is. It just really depends. It just really depends on the RNG. Because obviously when I play, all the fun cards I get, I never draw it. Right? But when other people play, they open the setup, they open the beast knees. Kevin never does though. So, I don't know. Tournaments Tier 0. It's good and bad. I don't know if you guys seen the Steam reviews. Those are pretty funny. People leaving recent Steam reviews and I see like, hundreds of hours on their account. But who am I to say that? I believe it has like 3 weeks worth of like hours of content or playtime, which is, I guess, maybe at this point, aside from Destiny 1 specifically, probably my most played game ever. Yeah, if I really think about it, which makes sense considering this is my channel. So Tournaments Tier 0. Is it a good thing if it's a Tier 0 format? Honestly, my hot take, yeah, but I know what you're thinking. Kevin, you mad lad. You can't accept the Tier 0 format. I want variety in decks. Well, it's good because, hey, I get to play other things. I get to do other things if it's a Tier 0 format, and I'm not interested in playing the deck. That's Tier 0. I'm really enjoying Mega Man Battle Network. Good times. Played it when I was younger. What else happened? Zelda's coming out, right? I don't know. I don't remember when that's coming out, but I saw the trailers. That looks the same, right? It was alright. I don't know. There's Zelda, Final Fantasy, things to look forward to. The ban list is probably not going to change anything at all. You're going to probably see tiers for a while until the next thing that ruins Yu-Gi-Oh! And honestly, if tournaments was replaced with something, say Sky Striker, which would probably never happen because other decks can stand up to Sky Striker. But if Sky Striker somehow we lived in a format where Sky Striker was Tier 0, that's amazing. Because Sky Striker really, if you really think about it, is probably the most fair, like, skill, quote-unquote, intensive deck ever, right? I know, I'm not here to brag or anything like that, but if you see my streams, and obviously when viewer battles happens again, you can 1v1 me, and the mirror. Sure, Maxing is kind of a sacky card here and there, but the mirror match, it's very, very skill intensive because obviously it's very difficult to OTK with Sky Striker, even with linkage, right? Linkage, you need a clear board for it to happen. A lot of things need to be set up for it to happen. You can't just willy-nilly do it like every other deck. And most of all, most games probably last longer than like 4 turns with Sky Striker. So there's that. Hey, if Sky Striker was Tier 0, I'm completely okay with that. Ooh, something went off in the background. Exactly. This is the most jank, scuffed first podcast episode ever. So if you're still listening at this point, I truly thank you. Hopefully you enjoy the Mexican background music and that my neighbors are playing, if you can hear it. Hopefully I'll edit this all out so you can't really hear it aside from but yeah, Tier 0 format just means take a break from Yu-Gi-Oh, which is good and bad, right? I generally do like playing Yu-Gi-Oh. It's a fun game. I still have, obviously if it wasn't fun I still wouldn't be interested in it at all. Even if Sky Striker is somehow not relevant at all, I still keep up with it, right? Because this is a fun game overall. I just hope it leads to something that changes. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm fine with tournaments being Tier 0, obviously, because of the Shizu cards, but if you take out the Shizu cards, the tournament's still going to be meta relevant, probably, but then another deck like, I don't know, Emancipator or some other terrible combo deck is going to just take over, because tournaments, yeah, they have a lot of gas, but it's obviously the Shizu cards that can help them reshuffle a lot of things and stuff like that, but I don't know. We'll see. Really depends how Konami is going to tackle this. I'm really interested, especially since Master Duel obviously has a ban list like once every month, essentially. Unlike real life, where it's kind of like radio silent, it can go from 3 to 4 months. But obviously, you got to pay up for in real life, and Master Duel, you can kind of mostly get everything for free, right? So, I don't know. They really should just hit the Shizu cards, call it a day. Every other deck kind of doesn't have a chance, right? Remember Sprite? Good times. But I really do wonder if it's because of the new hype or because tournament is that good. Because back in the day, TCG Land, Sprite still kind of had a chance, right? But obviously it was siding and stuff like that. But I don't know. Yeah. Let me know down below. What do you guys think of this Tier 0 format? Do you enjoy it? Well, you play Tiers, maybe. If you don't play Tiers, probably not, huh? Alright, we'll move on to the next segment. For this next segment, let's talk about favorite decks. Obviously, my favorite deck of all time is Sky Striker. You're probably wondering, Kevin, why? Why did you pick Ray? Is it because she's a cute anime blonde girl waifu thing? Oh yes, of course. Absolutely. But the real reason why is because before there was Ray, there was another guy named Dante, Traveler of the Burning Abyss. BA was like my favorite deck before Sky Striker came along. Because aside from the art, it's really cool and fair. And to me, PK Fire is like peak Yu-Gi-Oh at the time. Because back in the day, obviously, you just play PK Fire. What was the meta? It was PK Fire, I think it was Blue Eyes, and like Monarch format. So all three of those decks don't really put out like a billion negates, right? Like they do nowadays. It was just kind of go 1 for 1, control, try to make big boy monsters, and beat each other up and stuff like that, right? Well, aside from maybe Monarchs, because they can lock you out with Domain. But anyways, PK Fire, Burning Abyss, whatever you want to call it, right? It's very similar to Sky Striker if you think about it. Dante walked so Ray could run. All the monsters for the Burning Abyss stuff, they're very similar. It's kind of like a toolbox deck, right? For example, you got Farfa, shout out Farfa, YouTuber. I remember back in, it was called Glasgow Yu-Gi-Oh! But anyways, Farfa, you don't know what it does. It can target a monster in the field, banish it for a turn, right? Doesn't that sound kind of familiar, right? Disruption to your Widow Anchor, right? It was a pretty fair and I would say balanced deck for the most part. Until, they came out with other broken stuff and stuff like Beatrice, I suppose. But anyways, there was so much recursion to the graveyard, right? With Fogblade, blah, blah, blah. Make rank 3s. It was fairly fun, kind of balanced deck in my opinion. Or at least what I can remember. I absolutely do remember the first time I played against PK Fire, because I was getting back into the game, right? We all played when we were kids, basically. I had like a terrible Infinity deck, and the whole gimmick was to somehow special summon 3 monsters and tribute it, and make, Obelisk a Tormentor, the Shonen Jump magazine card. That was my like key monster back in the day. But I was playing against somebody, and I think I picked up like some terrible deck that I still had as a child. I went to locals for the first time. And that guy just destroyed me with PK Fire. I'm like, what's this? What's going on? What's all these black cards over here? And stuff like that. And he told me all about Dante. And so I picked up Dante like the next day. And it was great. It was fun for a long time, especially Thomas Rose, who managed to make it relevant for a while with all that, playing it with Sekka's Light. Remember that card? Good times. But obviously, eventually Dante kind of just fell out of the meta completely because he's a really fair card. To me, Dante is like the skill check, if you will, or like the filter to see if you're a newbie or like an old person like me. Or not old like me, I'm pretty sure there's somebody who's been playing since like the very beginning during GOAT format, but like relatively newer person or like older person, if that makes sense, right? If somebody doesn't know what Dante does, somebody has to read Dante, I'm like, all right, they're a new person, they're a new player. But Dante is probably one of the most fair and balanced monsters ever printed, right? Rank 3, big booty, defense, mills, controlled mills, which is pretty rare, I think. And also, it shifts into defense mode after battle phase, right? It's great. Recur itself, Sarah Chainlink 2, Dante Chainlink 1, right? Or whatever it is, whatever you want to do. Good times. So obviously when Dante fell apart, I was still coping with that deck. Even when Sky Striker got revealed, I'm like, who cares about this cringe anime girl, right? But then I started playing the deck, and I'm like, alright. I see. Dante got isekai'd. He got reincarnated into Ray. Essentially, Ray is the same thing. Now replace all the Burning Abyss monsters with the Sky Striker mecha. There you go. Alright. So, even though Ray is amazing, Dante still holds a special place in my heart. Just absolutely. But Ray's number one. If it came down to a shadow duel, if I lose, I go to the shadow realm, lose my soul, all that has to be Ray. Absolutely. So that's how I found out about Sky Striker. Mostly because Dante just kind of fell apart. Right? It's really tough playing Burning Abyss back then. I remember the gimmick was making Gallus and then Blackluster Soldier. But then stuff like Widow Anchor and 3 Engage will probably screw you over. Or, people were playing the Trickstar variant. So there's that. But to me, that's peak Yu-Gi-Oh! Like I always say, gang. Peak Yu-Gi-Oh! Is interaction. If Sky Striker is tier 0, I don't think anybody will realistically have a problem with that. Unless you're like, one of those combo people or scrub who wants to make 50 negates and then end the game without thinking too much. That's right, I said it. Peak Yu-Gi-Oh! Is interaction, guys. It is. Absolutely. Back and forth. Sky Striker. BA mirrors are kind of like that too, if I remember correctly. Kind of. Whoever sets up Dante, whoever sets up, I guess, Firelick, if you played way back then. Or whoever sets up the Fog Blades and stuff. It's great. Perfect. Amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! I just wish Yu-Gi-Oh! In the future would be more interactive, but looking ahead, doesn't look like that's going to be the case, gang. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Alright. Let me know down below what you think of your favorite decks and fond memories. Honestly, if I had a choice between playing Burning Abyss Forever or Sky Striker, it's a tough one. It really is. But I have to say, of course, it's Sky Striker. There's just so much more you can do with Sky Striker. Burning Abyss, I can't control any back row really, right? With all the BA monsters and stuff like that, but Sky Striker absolutely survived. So, because of Dante. Anyways, moving on to the next section. Hey, we're back. Hope you're still listening. I really do. I love it. Anyways, here's a fun discussion to think about. What would Sky Striker need to make it meta again? Does it need new cards? Do stuff need to happen? Well, duh, Kevin, absolutely. What does Sky Striker need for it to be meta? Now, I said earlier in the podcast that think of Sky Striker as a van. It's a minivan, right? Gets the job done, take the family anywhere you want, reliable. So really, how do you make a van go faster? Well, the most obvious one is if everyone else is driving a van or something similar, then maybe the van could compete. Can you imagine in Fast and Furious if there was basically instead of Mustangs and stuff, the main cars were vans, right? Or like a cheap Honda Civic or something like that. Exactly. So really, in my opinion, the only way Sky Striker can realistically become top tier meta again is if the power level of all the decks is significantly reduced, right? Sky Striker, what makes it so, I guess, so formidable, so resilient, right, is that it could technically adapt to any meta considering what is the meta, right? Like Engage is obviously a great card. You put in 3 spells, draw until your non-Sky Striker cards. That's what makes it so good, because you'll draw into a hand trap or anything other you might need, right? So that's probably the first thing. Everything needs to be lower to the floor, right? Obviously right now with tournaments and stuff like that, really hard to compete. But when tournaments eventually gets hits, and then maybe Konami decides to hit Kashtira and a bunch of other decks, you'll probably see Sky Striker be somewhat of a rogue meta challenge call, if you will, kind of on the same tier as like a Labyrinth, right? Because we know Labyrinth at the moment kind of does nothing, even though technically top to YCS, or yeah, top to YCS, which is pretty good, absolutely. Which brings us to the main question: can Engage go to 3? Would that matter? Honestly, even bias aside, if Engage goes to 3, that probably feels like it's too much. If Engage goes to 3, that means that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is at some breakneck speed, the one of the most broken in archetype cards ever printed. Remember, people basically say it's pot of greed. Does nothing, then I don't know what's wrong with Yu-Gi-Oh! And looking in the future forecast, looks like it's going to be purely, which is kind of like Fat Cat Sky Striker. Honestly, doesn't feel as fun to me as, like, you know, a schoolgirl who turned into mech suits and stuff. Just a bunch of fat cats. Right? Artwork matters. Look at Blue Eyes players. Anyways, is there any support card that could be created to make Sky Striker meta yet again? As someone who's obviously been playing Sky Striker for a very long time, what are the weaknesses? Things that are untargetable, and mostly negates, right? You already have Widow Anchor that negate monster effects. I guess Hamp can technically get rid of non-targeting stuff. But I think I would like 2 things really for Sky Striker, for it to at least be dealing with meta stuff, right? I would like something similar to Red Reboot, but like Sky Striker spell, right? Shuffle it back, or like return to hand, something like that. Because it's very weird to me that you have Widow Anchor obviously to negate effects and stuff, but you don't have something to negate spells, which I guess means that Sky Striker can play through most spells except from anti-spell, right? And Imperial Order is bad. You got to deal with Secret Village and stuff like that, but for the most part, Sky Striker doesn't really have to deal too much back row, right? There's one card I would like. The other card, maybe a hand trap, right? I can see that. That's what I thought Aileron would be. Right? Something kind of like honest, so you can beat over those untargetable stuff at least, or give yourself a chance to deal with negates or big monsters like that. I don't know, right? You could have a spell kind of like, I remember Infernities back in the day, they had a Phantom Hand, right? Where you'll banish your entire hand for the turn, so you can use your Infinity cards. But at the same time, if you know what you're doing, you're not going to need to play that anyways and like waste a card slot or something like that, right? We still got Camilla in the Sky Striker manga. If you haven't been reading it, they introduced new characters, and so that means new support. Most of it's complete garbage, aside from the one Link 2 that can essentially act as a Nightmare Phoenix and Cerberus, and will probably be better in a lot of other decks. But Camilla, her effect's still up in the air. If we know that Camilla, the other one, can destroy a card, then maybe Camilla, I would assume, I guess you'll probably be doing something, either adding back from your, I was gonna say like you can add a Sky Striker card that's not in your graveyard from your deck to your hand, but that sounds extremely broken, right? That's something that sounds way too broken. It basically makes Blu-ray kind of irrelevant, right? But same time, I don't know, she could do a spin effect, right? Return the card to hand. But I have a strong feeling that maybe this card will be completely useless, because you already have Zeke that banishes, the other Link 2 that destroys, and so the only other thing I can think of maybe is a spin, right? You already have banish. Well, it doesn't have to be destroy, maybe send, but you already have destroy, so Sky Striker is technically a fair deck. So I can see it being like a send, a card, any card from the field back to the hand. I don't know. We'll see. Sky Striker is fun. I mean, it's already obviously a good deck as it is. It doesn't need too much more. It just needs all the meta to come crashing down, right? And when it comes crashing down, it's time to invest, gang. All right. We'll move on to the next topic. Let me know down below if you have cope with Sky Striker. Absolutely. This is my outro song for free YouTube monies. Give me some likes and support me, please.